Ahoy hoy, hello hello, welcome welcome, and hi! This is Final Draft, and you are listening to Everfree Radio. In this installment, we review It's About Time, and I speak with artist, musician, and 3D modeler Makkon, so stay tuned for all the awesome.
Hello and welcome to Everfree Radio. I'm your host, Brushin Bones.
I'm your co-host, Moonlight.
And I'm your very, very, very alive co-host, AutumnSpice.
And today we're going to bring you episode 20 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2, It's About Time, and our review of such. This episode features something that the fandom has been looking forward to for a long time, a little bit of time travel. See what I did there?
Episode 20 already?
That's what I was thinking.
20 already.
Man, time goes by fast.
I do have to say that while time travel is occurring in this episode, it's not quite how the fandom might have preferred it to be done, but the way the fandom would have preferred it to be done would have probably required Hasbro to make some kind of deal with the BBC in order to make Doctor Who's into a legitimate character. So we're going to go ahead and dig right into this episode and the time travel therein.
Before we begin, Bones, is there anything you want to say about predictability?
Well, actually, I did not predict how this episode was going to end.
I didn't
It's
either.
kind of surprising. It's a very obvious episode, Bones.
It was, but for some reason, I thought that I can see where you're coming from when you say that it's kind of obvious that it would be that sort of unreal that Twilight was responsible for making herself, worry. But we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves here, Moonlight.
Slow down.
You're talking about the end of the episode before we've even begun.
Well, from my time, we've already reviewed it.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
Wait, so are you future Moonlight?
Yes.
Oh.
Well,
I got an eye patch and everything.
eye patch and everything. Well,
Did you get it from the chimney?
No.
Oh, that's no fun.
I got it from my desktop table.
That's not any fun.
we'll go ahead and start from the beginning. We who are here in your past, our present, and all that other wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Actually, since I died, I'm from Tartarus, so,
No! You guys are getting far ahead of us! Start the episode!
Alright.
Alright, beginning of the episode is Spike taking Rarity to a house that he built, which is made entirely of ice cream and gumdrops. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to see that this particular instance is a dream. Either that or Spike has taken Rarity to one of the most interesting places in all of Equestria. He's awakened to Twilight, frantically pacing downstairs because she didn't make any room in her schedule for making a schedule for the next time she needs to make a schedule. So it almost has this feeling like it's going to be Lesson 0 all over again, where she's going to be overly worried about something related to being a perfect organizational student sort of character. But overall, it quickly veers away from that after Spike's futile efforts in satiating Twilight's burgeoning stress from the situation, attempting to relieve her of that stress by basically explaining to her logically that there's no problem, you haven't made a schedule. They are swiftly interrupted by a bright light appearing in the center of the room, and said bright light, rather almost in a Terminator-esque sort of fashion, they are treated to future Twilight showing up. And yes,
It's Twilight Pliskin.
Solid sparkle.
everybody has talked about that. Snake Plissken, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the original Snake Plissken, is a character from the series of films Escape from New York and Escape from L.A. It's played by Kurt Russell. Very good movies. They're about a bad future in which a special operative who was imprisoned for war crimes is taken out of prison and basically pardoned in order to go and rescue the president who's been kidnapped by dudes, and they are in the prison island of New York. Basically, Manhattan's been turned into a prison island in the future. One of those typical bad future things. And that is where Snake Plissken comes from.
It's also where Solid Snake comes from, as he was based off of Snake Plissken.
So there you go. Both Solid Snake references, Snake Plissken references, all the rest. Terminator references with all the electricity and stuff as Future Sparkle comes.
But no Back to the Future references. That's kind of surprising.
No Back to the Future, no flames, no 88 miles an hour, no 1.21 gigawatts. But yeah, Future Sparkle says that she has something very important to tell her about a disaster that's going to occur next Tuesday. Or rather, she doesn't really say that there's going to be a disaster so much as that what she's saying is really important to prevent something disastrous, which is basically something you will find out how important her wording was later on. But
The way Twilight's brain works, it automatically turns that into, oh my gosh, there's going to be a disaster.
yeah, and since she's a total nerd, she gets way too excited for her own good about being able to meet a future version of herself and asks far too many questions, takes up all of future Twilight's time, and future Twilight's zapped back into the future before she could say what was so important. Well, that means that it's time for Twilight, here in the present, to start worrying.
I'd worry too if future me came and said, oh, I have to warn you about something. Yep, I can't tell you. I can only tell you part of it and then disappear.
Actually, I think Twilight should take a lesson from Pinkie Pie on worrying.
Yeah, probably. But we cut to Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy. Pinkie Pie, who's hovering slightly over the ground because she got balloons tied to herself, and Fluttershy carrying all of the rest of the party equipment, which further goes to solidify that I think that Pinkie Pie really has this kind of like subconscious mean streak to her. She treats Dash like crap, whether she means to or not, in the episode with the cider. And she is completely and totally ruining Cranky Doodle Donkey's attempts at making a new home for himself in Ponyville in his episode. And now she's forcing Fluttershy to carry tons of weight like some kind of pack mule.
Well, what probably happened was she asked Fluttershy to help, and Fluttershy being Fluttershy couldn't say no.
And she just acquiesced with a big stink about it, despite the fact that...
But what did she learn?
Yeah, what did she learn last episode, Moonlight? Not to be a gosh darn welcome mat.
Hey, there's no chronological order to these episodes, you know.
Yeah, no chronological episode, schmepisode. So we get a nice montage of everybody working to ensure that nothing disastrous could possibly happen, and Twilight checking marks off on a checklist, as
I love
we
the
all could have
montage.
predicted. Also, Pinkie Pie twists a bolt the wrong way, I noticed. There's a little... They're repairing a split in the wood support of a bridge, and Pinkie Pie is twisting the nut on the bolt left. Unless this is a reverse-threaded bolt, she should be twisting it to the right. Otherwise, she's actually loosening the bolt, making it worse.
Did you recognize the music during the montage? Because it sounds very familiar to me, but I can't place it
You
anywhere.
know, I recognized it too. It bothered me.
It almost seemed like it was a slight spin-off of the Banana Splits.
Maybe.
But it was only very slightly. That's kind of the feeling that I got from it, was the Banana Splits. But yeah, anyways, moving on from that, they managed to solve all these different issues around town to ensure there won't be a disaster. And then suddenly, Cerberus out of nowhere. It's pretty just out of nowhere, and we get a little bit of an info dump from Twilight saying that Cerberus is the guardian of Tartarus, or Tartarus, Greek mythology gate to Hades. So we now know that Tartarus and a Hades equivalent exists in the realm of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and Cerberus is its guardian.
Now we know that not only are there just references to Greek mythology in this show, but there is a direct link. There is a Tartarus in the actual realm of My Little Pony.
If Tartarus and Hades exist, then Mount Olympus probably exists. And if Hades and Mount Olympus exist, are the gods ponified, or are they like normal?
But Bones, here's how it is. The mountain that Camelot is located
Ooh.
on is Mount Olympus.
Ooh.
And that's why the princesses live there.
I don't think it quite works that way.
Come on.
It
I
could
don't
work
think it
that
quite
way,
works
though.
that way. We've already been told by word of God in the devs through the various different accounts that they use on the internet that Celestia and Luna are not supposed to be god or demigod analogs. They're powerful, but they are not gods. Despite the fact that I would very quickly disagree because, you know, they move the sun and the moon, which is kind of a big deal. The word of God states that they are not god or demigod analogs. I would have to disagree with you on that part.
Bones, the other unicorns working together, however, can move the sun, remember?
Yeah, so that's all the more proof to that the devs are serious when they mean that Celestia and Luna are not god, demigod analogs. So I would have to disagree with you on that part, Moonlight. I don't think that Canterlot's mountain is Mount Olympus. But anyways, we've kind of gone off track here. So after taking Cerberus back to Tartarus, because Twilight can apparently just, walk right up to the gates of hell.
That's going to become a very interesting concept in the fandom.
Considering Greek mythology kind of had that as well, just where people, if they knew where the gate to hell was, they could just kind of go up to it and just chill, So she takes Cerberus back to the gate of hell, comes back, she realizes she got herself a cut on her face, which is the same as the cut that was on future Twilight's face, so the problem isn't fixed yet. She starts to worry and realizes maybe it's something she doesn't do, so maybe she can just stand in her house, not moving, and just stay there until Tuesday, and nothing bad will happen. And so Spike decides, like the child he is, to use this to his advantage and taunt Twilight as he eats an entire carton of ice cream.
And eats. Every scene he's in after this just has him eating ice cream. Which brings us to the moral of the story: don't eat too much ice cream. That's the real lesson in today's episode.
Hey, in the words of future Spike, in the words of Spike, that's future Spike's problem, okay? And actually,
Exactly.
In all honesty, Spike has the right
It's the hidden
idea,
lesson.
because the moral of the story is don't worry about the future, just take everything as it comes, And that's basically the way Spike has. Yeah, sure, he ended up with a stomach ache, but he basically says, that's future Spike's problem, I'm not worried about it.
Well, Bones, you probably should worry about it, because future Bones is going to be worrying about some things.
Interestingly enough, it's very funny to see that Twilight's always seen as this reasonable, scientific, level-headed pony, except you see her start to panic and start to go crazy. And Spike is the one that's like, you can just think about it later, or you can just do this or that.
Well, in all honesty, he comes off as more of the sane one when it comes to, because all of the ponies have different exaggerated traits to their personality, and Spike's really the closest thing to an every dude that you'll get in this series. He is pretty much the only sane man amongst a group of insane ponies, or only sane dragon.
Very interesting and fun about Spike's character is you think that he's doing something immature, and yes, he does have his times where he slips up at he has his own episodes where he learns lessons, but he seems to be the voice of reason to Twilight, even though she thinks that, she's the one that is the voice of reason and that he's the assistant. A lot of the times, he's the one that really teaches the lessons to Twilight, or really does help her learn.
Well, a good student teaches the teacher, and a good teacher teaches the student, or however that phrase goes. He teaches Twilight and cares for Twilight, takes care of her. He teaches Twilight and cares for Twilight, takes care of her just as much as she takes care of him. If Spike wasn't present in Twilight's life, her life would probably be a huge freaking disaster. I mean, just think about that for a moment.
She'd have to send the letters.
She cannot handle her own extreme personality by herself. She needs that every dude like Spike to be there to kind of serve as a pillar of sanity and support. If Spike wasn't present, she would probably have gone insane by now.
She'd probably be in her crazy scientist basement in the corner, monitoring everything.
Yeah. But we've gone way off track. So, getting back to the thing, Rainbow Dash shows up after Spike started taunting Twilight, and she decides to join in the taunting, even going so far as to say, Twilight, there's a mouse behind you, which has revealed to us that apparently Twilight doesn't like mice, or is afraid of mice, or similar, because she gets this awesome facial expression. This awesome expression on her face is just priceless. They taunt her, and then Spike gets the idea to tickle her, and Twilight has enough and throws him off with her magic, and inadvertent blast of fire later, and she's got a scorched mane that looks just like the one that future Twilight has. So she starts to worry even more, because no matter what she's doing, nothing seems to be changing. And so, worrying and worrying and worrying. And you can just see Spike and Rainbow Dash in the background just kind of going, geez, Twilight's really taking this way seriously. You know what? Let's go see Madam Pinky.
And I'm certain that tons of people who were watching were just sitting there saying, Gypsy magic! Gypsy magic!
This is just one more reason why I think a lot of, even those who haven't ever liked Pinkie Pie, this is just one more reason why I think Pinkie Pie is gonna continue to grow on people and continue to be liked by the fandom, is because she has such random moments where she just does such silly stuff.
It was just an amazing scene, and I had just watched and listened to the song Pinky's Brew, and it was stuck in my head. So right when they referred to Madame Pinky and they had her in like the fortune teller gypsy outfit, I was just laughing so hard. And I knew it wasn't a direct reference, but it really was kind of a geeky moment for me. And then to have her, you know, talk about, oh, you're going to get a great birthday present. The whole dialogue of that scene was hysterical, very much Pinkie Pie, and it showed continuity. You had Twilight saying, oh, what about your pinky senses? Even though it wasn't the best episode that they were referring to, at least in my opinion, they had her referring to how she trusts the pinky senses at this point, Twilight does.
And then Pinky decides to say, you know, that it's only for vague points that are soon to happen instances, and then a
flower pot falls on Twilight's head. And Pinky's just, I don't know why I loved this, but Pinky just kind of lounges back and puts her hooves up on the table. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
I will say that there is one issue that kind of bugged me with Pinky's inclusion as Madam Pinky, quote unquote, is because this really kind of seemed like an opportunity for us to have Zecora in the episode.
I thought it was going to be Zecora.
As a kind of like witch doctor, potion brewing sort of magic specialist and stuff like that, as well as being from a foreign land because she's a zebra and stuff like that. Sure, it might have been a bit more cliched or stereotypical, but it would have given us, you know, more Zecora time, and I would have liked that a bit. Pinky was great, but Zecora would have probably been a good attempt as well, just because we could have at least seen Twilight ask Zecora if she knows of any way to scry the future or brew a potion to make her see the future or whatever. And it kind of felt to me like a missed opportunity, but you know, Pinky does make up for it because she is pretty awesome and silly. So Pinky is the one who's going to be tagging along with Twilight from this point forward in the episode. We don't really see anybody else. We had Rainbow Dash and we had the other girls, Applejack and Fluttershy and Rarity, at the beginning of the episode, but they're pretty much gone. And so Pinkie Pie, after basically saying that her fortune telling is a sham to begin with, follows up with Twilight by going to Twilight's house later on and discovers that Twilight is in the house frantically scurrying about with all sorts of equipment and papers and graphs strewn about the entirety of the library. And she's looking through them and she's looking at them and she's doing calculations, and Spike is eating ice cream and sitting on the stairs and being silly. And Pinky's just not understanding anything that Twilight's trying to make her do. And I've got to say, Twilight, if you're looking for calibrations, Pinkie Pie's not the one to ask. You need Garrus Vakarian. He is the master calibrator.
I
think a couple of the pieces of equipment that Twilight has up in the library are some of the ones that we saw in a previous episode where she was actually hooking Pinky up to the equipment when she was testing the Pinky senses. So she moved some of it upstairs.
She brought it out of her evil mad scientist lab downstairs.
Well, there's no windows downstairs, so...
True. I want to know where Spike got the money to buy all of these tubs of ice cream, since I'm pretty certain that he probably doesn't have enough allowance to buy that much ice cream on his own, so he'd have to ask Twilight for money. I guess in her insanity, she doesn't realize that she's giving him money to buy more ice cream. But anyway, back to Twilight's insanity.
Or, you know, he probably opened a tab at the local ice cream
decided
parlor.
that she's going to basically monitor everything all the time. until Tuesday comes. So she's running about looking through telescopes and all that sort of thing while Pinky's just kind of being confused and Spike's gorging himself on ice cream. And then Twilight manages to screw up her right eye by looking directly at the sun through a telescope, which is kind of a bad idea. And Pinky, who keeps a stash of eye patches hidden all across Ponyville, pulls out an eye patch from the chimney and just kind of slaps it onto Twilight's face. Well, first off, we forgot to mention that earlier in the episode she says that she keeps a stash of balls hidden all around Ponyville for a ball emergency. And that's how they get rid of Cerberus, by having Twilight run him back to the gates of hell with a ball. And that I can kind of understand from Pinkie Pie. The eye patch is kind of pushing it, especially since she pulled it out of a chimney. Chimneys are filled with grime and ash and dust, and she pulls it out, puts it on Twilight's eye.
It's not good for eyes.
And I imagine that would cause some major irritation and probably a major infection. But hey, you know what? Twilight's got an eye patch now. So now she's sporting the scar on her, the scratch on her face, the messed up mane, the headband because she had to wrap her head after the potted plant fell on her in Pinkie Pie's tent. And now she also has the eye patch. Looking more and more like Big Boss with every moment, Twilight. So they've come to this realization that she cannot continue to focus on monitoring everything the entire time. So the only solution to preventing the disaster is to stop time. Now, I'm not going to say how many levels of messed up that train of thought is, because if you stopped time, you're probably going to destroy the universe.
Yeah.
And yeah. So she decides that they have to stop time. So we get ourselves a nice little transition. It's nighttime. They arrive in Canterlot via the train, and they're all dressed in tight latex sneaking suits and sneaking around. And even when sneaking, Pinkie Pie is still bouncing, and Spike is still eating ice cream.
Ice cream. He has a cone this time.
And Twilight's insanity really has reached its apex because she thinks that posing as a statue, when not looking anything like a statue, is going to keep them from being spotted by the guards. But hey, somehow it miraculously works.
Or the guard just ignores her.
Yeah, since, she's Twilight Sparkle.
I mean, she is Twilight. Actually, that reminds me about the sneaking suits. Where do they contain Spike's spikes and Pinkie's hair?
Very, very carefully. They are connected to a limited hammer space.
I see.
I just don't understand the concept of a sneaking suit being used if you're going to let your very, very recognizable tail stick out the back.
I liked that they had the night guard. I noticed that rather quickly.
Yes, the night guard. Yeah.
They had a night guard, and they weren't using flashlights in the montage. They were using their horns.
Yep. It's just, you can tell that this is really where Twilight's insanity has come into play, because she honestly thinks that what they have to do is going to be illegal for some reason, and it's really not, because, like Pinkie says, it's not illegal to walk around Canterlot at night, and Twilight used to live in Canterlot and is well known as being not just a savior of Equestria, because they were honored publicly for defeating Discord in that epic Star Wars shout-out. And not only is she and her friends are known for saving all of Equestria at one point in time, she's also well known as the prize pupil of Princess Celestia herself. Being allowed into the library, or rather the archive in this case, the Canterlot archive, should not be that far-fetched a thing. And of course, Twilight's trying to say, this isn't fun, this is very serious and important. Pinkie's just tagging along because she thought that they were doing this for fun. She even goes so far as to say, aren't we wearing these suits for fun? Which kind of has to lead you to wonder about Pinkie Pie's taste if she thinks dressing up in a skin-tight latex sneaking suit is done for purposes of fun only.
She's just bouncing around and having fun, but it's then emphasized quite a bit that it is very legal to wander around the library, and she had nothing to worry about when she runs into the guard right outside the area that she's attempting to access. And the guard's just like, oh, hey, Twilight, I haven't seen you in a while. I'll just open that up for you.
I'm curious how many fans are going to want to, go into the background of this guard now. This random guard who happened to be like, oh, hey, it's Twilight Sparkle. Hey, I haven't seen you around here in a while. Here, let me get that locked door for you.
He's probably already named. Then, to even further emphasize the legality and that she really, really didn't have to worry, we get a very, very funny little clip of Princess Celestia walking past Twilight, just being like, "Oh, hi, Twilight. Happy Tuesday."
Yeah, because their search for a spell to stop time completely bears no fruit, and the sun rises, and Princess Celestia walks right by and says, "Oh, hi, Twilight." And it's just like totally nonchalant and just like, "Hey, nice to see you."
Why was Celestia in the Star Swirl the Bearded Wing at the crack of dawn?
Well, considering the fact that she probably just raised the sun, we could assume that she probably left whatever place that because she has that little podium or whatever, I know, that she raises the sun at least at the Summer Sun celebration in the pilot episode. So she probably has to go through that section, like that hallway, in order to get back to like wherever, the main chamber or anything like that. And she just decided to detour into the Star Swirl, the Bearded Wing, to find a scroll or a book or something on her way there. And she just ran into Twilight. And was just like, "Hey, Twilight, how's it going? Bye-bye." So we get a nice little hi bye from Princess Celestia, and Twilight realizes that the truth of the matter is that she shouldn't have worried at all, because she just made herself worry excessively over nothing. And so Spike and Pinkie Pie point out they found a spell to go back in time for a short amount of time. Gosh, the word time is being used a lot in this review. Time, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Now, she goes back in time to attempt to tell her past self not to worry about what's happening in the future, but she gets cut off, just like she did when she went there at the beginning of the episode. And she realizes that the only reason Twilight was worrying was because she went back in time and attempted to tell her not to worry. But who cares? That's past Twilight's problem now. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Everybody laughs. And we have a nice little ending. So, that coming to a close, and the episode being all done and over with, and I'm sure Twilight's eye and her head and her mane and her face will recover from this incident. What did you all think of the episode?
Predictable.
It's funny that we hear that coming from you this time instead of me. I'm going to say that I did not predict it, because I kept thinking that there was going to be some kind of issue, but it would be a minor issue, and it would be something that doesn't really, it's not very important, but it is a kind of like an issue. Like, I thought that maybe it was going to be something like, she gets so worried about there being a legitimate problem that she forgets to set aside time to write her schedule. And that turned out to be why Twilight attempted to go back in time, was that she was going to tell her to focus on writing her schedule and not worrying about disasters in Ponyville or something like that. But it turned out to be different. It was just, don't worry so much about disasters happening in the future. Just kind of focus on the present. What you can do in the present.
Well, you don't have much time in the present, Bones. You only got so much time left till the future happens.
I would say that I was exasperated, but I'm actually very, very much in fear for my safety. I'm just keeping it on the down low because of our episode review. So, on a score, 1 being terrible, 5 being awesome, or all that jazz, what would you rate it as? Let's go ahead and start with Autumn, since she has joined us for this episode once again.
Yes. Well, since there was the 2 words time and travel involved in this episode, I had absolutely no idea what to expect. So I went into this episode with just no ideas in my head. I was just like, okay, not predicting a thing, just gonna watch, see what happens. So I can't really label it as predictable or if it were unpredictable, because I didn't know. So I'm just going to say it from the perspective of if it was enjoyable or not. I thought it was a fun and cute episode. There were plenty of references. The scenes were great. So I would say kind of tricky to rate it. I'd probably give it a 4. Yeah, 4 sounds about right.
All right. So you give it a 4. Moonlight, what about you?
Well, like I said, I did find it to be predictable, but in the sense that it's like how most time travel episodes in TV shows that actually have that are handled. You get a message from the future, a person freaks out and tries to stop it, but finds out that their attempts to stop it just make it happen anyway.
Yeah, the stable time loop can't change your fate sort of situation that's used in a lot of stuff, because there are a couple of different ways time travel can work. This is certainly the most common one, but it kind of supports the idea that destiny is unalterable. And for those of you out there who are Whovians, you would know that that's kind of not a very enjoyable way of putting out time travel. There's no fun if you can't change some things. But I'm just going to say that this is one of those instances in time that just kind of happens to be an instance in time that's unchangeable. It will happen. It's quantum locked here. So even if the Doctor himself were to come in here and attempt to change this time-locked event, he would not be able to do it. So we'll just say that and we'll move on. So what's the rating you give it, Moonlight?
Well, it certainly wasn't one of my more favorite episodes of the season, so I think I'd give it around 3.9-ish. 3.7 to 3.9.
3.7 to 3.9. Wow, you're really making this difficult with all the different decimal points. No, but it's fine. Okay, well, I guess that goes on to my point. I would probably rate it at maybe a 4 or a 4.5, because a 4 or a 4.5, mostly just because, as much as I love Pinkie Pie in this episode, and she certainly did make it up, you know what, I'll give it a 4.5, just straight up 4.5 stars, 4.5. Pinkie Pie was great in this episode, but when it came to her and the whole Madam Pinkie thing, I think that would have been a good opportunity to bring in Zecora for some more side character usage, because I love the side characters like Zecora and stuff like that. I think that they deserve a little bit more airtime. I especially hope that Zecora will have an episode in the future that kind of revolves around her, kind of like how Cheerilee got that episode with Big Mac.
That'd be awesome.
great.
It'd be very nice, especially if we could get a little bit more in-depth with how the zebra country works and how zebra culture works, as opposed to Equestria and pony culture. So I think that Zecora not being there was a real travesty, but Pinkie did pull it off very well. But the rest of the episode was really enjoyable. Cliche though this particular use of time travel might be, it was fun. All of the references were great. There is no way in heck that Twilight was not intended to look like Snake Plissken or some variation thereof. And the manner in which she appears with the time travel, with this orb of light appearing and then the electricity around her body with the big explosion of light, that's definitely a Terminator reference right there. There's no doubts about that.
Do you think the infiltration scene was a slight nod to Metal Gear at all?
That would still be a nod to Escape from LA or Escape from New York as well.
It would possibly still qualify as a nod to Escape from LA or Escape from New York. But I would say that if you want to believe that it's a nod to Metal Gear Solid, go ahead, because it just makes the episode all that much more fun, because you've got 2 ponies and a dragon in sneaking suits. You could totally take the scene of them attempting to get into Canterlot and put the music to Metal Gear Solid, the sneaking music to Metal Gear Solid in it.
I was half expecting an exclamation mark.
I was too. I was waiting for a cardboard box.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That would have been great. I'm sure that we're going to get a whole ton of fan art of ponies wearing these suits now, because this is the second time these sneaking suits have appeared, and apparently ponies have easy access to these full-body suits, because Rainbow Dash had one in her episode, and now Twilight, Pinkie Pie, and Spike have one in this episode. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of fan art featuring these bodysuits. There's probably going to be lots of fan art featuring Twilight, Pinkie Pie, and Spike, and maybe even Rainbow Dash as spy characters. And I hope that there are a couple of fans out there. If you're listening to this and you like to edit little videos and stuff like that, I hope that you make some kind of minor video with Garrus and calibrations, because the moment the word calibrate came out of Twilight's mouth, I'm sorry, Effect fanboy, and it made me think of Garrus Vicarian. So there you go. So we've got a 3.7, or you know what? I'll just say that you were a 3.75. So we've got a
or you can just round it up to a 4.
or a 4. Okay, yeah, let's round it up to a 4. So we've got 2 4s and a 4.5. I'll go ahead and say that that's pretty good for this episode. There were a couple little slight problems. Overall, this was main 6 light as a whole. It featured mostly around Twilight, and the second most shown character as far as the main 6 goes was Pinkie Pie. Fluttershy, Rarity, and Applejack were only present for just before and during the montage of fixing up the town and making sure Equestria was safe. And then Rainbow Dash was there to kind of aid in the taunting alongside Spike, who was eating lots of ice cream. But overall, I think this episode was pretty good. And I think that this is a pretty accurate thing. This is a good episode for newcomers, too, in my opinion, just because it's got that kind of feeling to it that's very, very much just like old cartoons, where it was kind of a problem of the day sort of thing, where people would go about doing crazy stuff. And, of course, it's got lots of Pinkie Pie in it, so that means there's going to be lots of shenanigans.
Maybe a bit too much Pinkie Pie. Not enough Fluttershy.
Yeah,
You would
never
say
have
that.
enough Pinkie.
Fluttershy got to stop Cerberus. I mean, come on.
But it's been rather Fluttershy light the entire season, except for when she got an episode to herself. We haven't really gone a lot.
Where she tries to help Rainbow Dash get a pet, and then you've got the episode where she's trying to learn how to be less of a doormat, and then she'll have at least about the same amount of Fluttershy-centric episodes as everybody else has had character-centric episodes.
How many episodes did Rainbow Dash get?
I don't know. Let's see. The Read It and Weep, the pet episode.
Mare-do-well.
Oh yeah, Mysterious Mare-do-well was pretty Rainbow Dash-centric for the most part.
Anywho, we've gone way off.
Oh yeah, we've gone way off topic. Anyways, we've gone way off topic, but our review has come to an end, and for those of you who have stuck with us and continue to listen through all the way to the end, thanks a bunch. Thank you for joining us. I've been your host, Brushin Bones.
I'm your, once again, very alive, AutumnSpice.
And thank you for joining us on Everfree Radio. We hope to see you the next time you come around. See you later.
Send me fan fiction.
Send Moonlight fan fiction.
Next up is my interview with Makkon, but first here's a new track by the prolific Aviators, The Real Me.
Somehow there came a time I lost what I lived for. I became a monster. I'm not that pony anymore. I guess I got some bad advice. I haven't been very nice, but I'm leaving that now. I won't ever let you down. I'm back to the way I was before. I'm gonna stand up for what's right. I won't let what I say get between you and I, because being mean isn't what I wanna be. Back to hiding behind the crowds, back to hiding the words I shouldn't say out loud, because this is the real me. shouldn't say out loud, because this is the real me. I will always be nothing more than me. It's who I am to be shy. So I guess that's alright. I won't try to change again. I refuse to hurt my friends. From now on, what you'll see is the real I will always be nothing more than me. It's who I am to be shy. So I guess that's alright. I won't try to change again. I refuse to hurt my friends. From now on, what you'll see is the real me. I'm gonna stand up for what's right. I won't let what I say get between you and I, because being mean isn't what I wanna be. Back to hiding behind the crowd, back to hiding the words I shouldn't say out loud, because this is the real me.
Welcome back. This is Final Draft, and I'm here with our special guest of the week, Makkon. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, and so, first and foremost, I wanted to ask you the question that I ask all brony artists and all brony musicians. How did you become a brony?
Yeah, sure. So, kind of started out, I essentially grew up on an online community called polycount.com. I've, for most of my life, and still do, want to be an animator, digital artist. I'd love to work in the video game industry. And I randomly came across a thread about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic in the World Discussion Forum. And I don't know what it was, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, oh, come on, they can't still be doing these. Let it die already. And so I went into the thread, had some minutes to kill, and I watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, I can appreciate the fact that this is well animated, really good walk cycles, the voice acting seems to be good, and the story has a good flow, but that's about all I appreciate of it. And I just dropped it there, and I didn't go back for a while. Later that month, when I visited my friend up in Salt Lake City, and I kind of got a little tired watching her play Minecraft, so I just randomly blurted out, hey, do you want to watch something funny? Something that's so bad that we can laugh at it? So we load up the thread, watch the first episode, and our smug little expressions quickly changed to, wide open gaping mouths. Like, what is this that we're watching right now? I don't know what to think. It was kind of a shock. It was a complete paradigm shift. Like, wow, I'm actually enjoying this. Man Shield was up so high, it had a long way to fall.
I like that term, man shield.
Oh, we use it at work all the time. I actually bring up ponies maybe a little bit too often at work, but I don't shove it down people's faces, so for the most part. So, when my friend and I were watching this show, we didn't really know what to think. The first episode ends and the credits are rolling, and we just kind of awkwardly turn toward each other and say, another episode? Sure. And after that, it was just a downward spiral of, allowing ponies to take over my life and everything that I am, and here we are.
Well, I don't think it's a downward spiral.
Oh yeah, of course. No, I'm just saying that sarcastically.
If anything, it's an ascent to a transcendence to a higher state of being, right? Well, okay, so you've actually participated in multiple areas of the fandom. I mean, you're a visual artist, you've been working with Pony Cart video game, you're a musician. So my question for you is, did you participate in any of those kinds of media before you became a brony, or is that something that you started really becoming involved with after you became a fan of the show?
You know, it's interesting. It seems like the very fact that the show, has kind of become part of what I enjoy, it almost seemed like a little spark. I did participate in a few mods on ModDB, and, I've been doing a lot of artwork and really, conceptualizing video games for the majority of my life, but the music, on the other hand, isn't really something that I think it was honestly just timing, because I was building up with buying a new keyboard, getting a nicer computer, and then all of a sudden, bam, ponies, and I'm like, you know what? I think I want my first song to be pony related.
So could you go a little bit into detail about your first song then?
Yeah, the very song that I posted, Luna Deus, very terrible Latin translation. Google Translate looked it up. I thought it was kind of cool. But the very first song that I made was really nothing more than experimenting with the new instruments and new software that I had gotten for my computer, because I was really excited to be able to finally start writing some quality music. I used to use a lot of FL Studio, and trying to do orchestral music in that program is or soundtracks in general. And so when I started using Cubase, which is the sequencer that I use, as well as Contact, the virtual instrument or VST that I've been using a lot, it was a completely different experience for me. I had to relearn everything that I knew, and so the song itself was kind of a hack job, but it turned out really well, especially for my first one.
It seems like you've been gaining momentum from there, just in your music composition. I mean, did you find that after you produced that first track that you wanted to do more and more?
Oh yeah, it was immensely encouraging. It was actually posted on EQD, or Equestria Daily. Seth was very supportive. I showed him a work in progress, and he's like, sounds pretty cool. Can't wait to see what it's like when it's finished. Back in the day when he had more time.
Yeah, he does not have very much time nowadays.
Poor guy. That's okay, though. So, when that was posted, and I started to see all the feedback, a lot of people subscribing and a lot of people commenting and giving me not only good feedback, but also good critique. Like, they had wonderful suggestions, like, the audio clipping on this is pretty bad. Let me tell you about compressors. Let me tell you about maximizers. Let me tell you about limiters. It was like my first experience with being able to receive constructive criticism, at least with music, being able to apply that directly, and improve with song after song. Surprisingly enough, the community that we have on YouTube, at least, the ones who are interested in ponies, are quite honest and very helpful. The thing that really surprised me about the community, very first fandom that I really got into, was that the people here were genuinely friendly and helpful. And they've been just generally helpful and supportive. It just really helped me to want to keep going and to want to keep writing music and also to want to keep improving. It just really helped me to take off, I suppose.
Have you ever considered going back and, say, redoing one of your earlier tracks, given your newfound talents and skills that you've gained over the past few months?
It's funny you should say that. I've actually done that a few times. The very first track I published, Luna Deus, I finally, mustered up the guts and put in the effort to produce the full version of it, is what I was calling it. Luna Deus was a finished track. So Die Lunae, which is the remade version of Luna Deus, was essentially that. It's a remake of my very first track with all the knowledge and things that I'd gained over the past few months with music.
Well, and that track itself is actually doing quite well on YouTube right now.
Yeah, it actually is. I get a lot of really interesting comments from people. One guy in particular had commented that he played it at his grandmother's funeral. I thought it was interesting.
Oh, wow. That's a big honor, I would say.
Yeah, it really is. At the same time, I've been to a few funerals myself, and I can see how it would require some explanation to the people there.
So going to your musical style, you do use a very orchestrated sound, a very string-based sound. And my question for you then is, what have been your major inspirations, aside from the show, of course, for your compositions? I mean, what kind of music do you listen to, or what kind of inspirations do you draw upon to produce that sound?
You know, that's about as complicated as my brony conversion story as well. The kind of music that I grew up with was predominantly movie soundtracks and classical music. There's just something about the orchestral feeling, that orchestral sound that is so beautiful, so inspiring, and yet it's so difficult to produce. It's inspiring. I don't know what it is that I have been trying to capture for as long as I've been making music, even from the very beginning with my little pathetic attempts that you can find on Tindeck, if you found my profile there, to what I'm doing now. I'm getting closer. I'm not quite there. I would have to say mostly movie soundtracks. I love Hans Zimmer. I love Harry Gregson Williams. Not to mention video game soundtracks as well. They do some of those on occasion. I also love John Williams. Foreign composers that I have a deep amount of respect for, such as Joe Hisaishi.
Oh, I was gonna mention him.
Yeah, I just love those beautiful flowing string scores that they have in those soundtracks. Gorgeous.
I get this sense then that you're a Miyazaki fan.
Oh yeah, I would have to say so.
Yeah, I figured if you had heard of Joe Hisaishi, then you definitely must be a fan of Miyazaki, and it's definitely that string-based, orchestral, grandiose sound.
Yeah, and that's the kind of feeling that I love to capture. I'd love to be able to somehow tell a story, or paint a picture, with just sound. Lyrics are an interesting thing. I don't do well with lyrics because I don't do very well with words. I mean, I'm okay with conversation, but try to make me come up with something creatively regarding words or lyrics or writing of any kind, and I'm at a loss. Nonverbal, musical communication, I guess, in that respect.
Do you play any instruments outside of the computer yourself, or have you considered using actual acoustic instruments in some of your compositions?
I really have considered that. There's several people who have mentioned that they're really, really good at a particular instrument, such as a violin or a cello, that have wanted to collaborate. Come up on that someday. I do play the piano. I play it quite frequently, and it's probably the one forced childhood drudgery that I don't regret. I really do respect my parents for pushing me and encouraging me and helping me to actually enjoy something that was going to make a massive difference later on in my life. So aside from the piano, I don't play any other sort of instrument. Acoustic recording is a mystery to me. It's an entirely different science in regards to just sound design when you're on the computer. But I've done a little bit of studio recording, at least with voiceovers, so that's about the extent of my experience when it comes to that.
Well, so you wouldn't say no then if someone were to come up to you with an instrument and said, hey, record me.
No, I wouldn't say no at all. I would have to say, I sure hope you have a really nice studio set up, because I don't.
Well, you've recently been working with the video game Pony Cart, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
And that's getting some buzz. I think a lot of video game fans and a lot of Brony fans who tend to be one and the same are all excited for this project. Could you go into a little bit of what you've been doing with that overall?
Yeah, to be honest, looking back, I haven't done as much as a lot of people perhaps credit to me. I have done a lot of extra work as well as modeling. I modeled the initial base mesh for all of the characters, and our animator Fresh Waffles has come in and made a lot of modifications and frankly brought it to life. Modeling, a lot of texturing, as well as a lot of music. But that's honestly the extent to it. I am engaged in a lot of the game development conversations in regards to creative choices and the directions that we want to go. Pony Cart has been an absolute blast. We have a team full of intelligent, competent people who know what they're doing, and they have a wonderful sense of humor. Recent development video where we, quite honestly, kind of trolled a lot of people.
I'm pretty sure I saw something of it.
Yeah, we fixed Lyra, the background pony, sitting correctly, and honestly overcompensated.
So is there anything you can reveal about the state of production about the game right now? How far away are we from seeing it? How far along is it? What can you tell us?
To be honest, there's actually, a version of the game that you could acquire and play yourself. We just don't spell it out for you, and we don't really make it easy. We just have the files open for anybody who wants to play it and test it out. However, we've simply asked that people not distribute screenshots or post videos of things that we have not published yet. It's a spare time project that we're doing for free, and of course we're all very busy people. The only answer that I have to that is it'll be done when it's done.
I think producing a video game really takes a lot more effort and time than a lot of fans maybe want to give it credit for. I mean, it's a multimedia experience, really. And you've mentioned that you've been working not only with the music, but also with the graphic textures and the 3D modeling. All of those different elements have to come together just right. So I think that, at least from my perspective, if people are trying to rush a video game, especially a free game, out faster than it's going to come out naturally, you're going to start seeing more glitches and more problems. Have you guys encountered any major hang-ups as you've been working on it?
Oh, yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm not so involved in the technical side as I am in the art side. Our lead programmer, Pyrite, or Hopip, I think that's how it's pronounced, he really knows what he's doing. And so do all the other people who are involved in the technical aspects of the game, such as our shader artist or our webmaster. We also have a guy who's working on AI. It's very, very complicated things, and they have a lot more frustration that they have to deal with than I ever will. For the most part, they're able to their frustration, and we're all able to collaborate and communicate and discuss solutions. A lot of the problems that we have is sometimes with rigging. Whenever you're assigning bones to a character, that can really become a crazy cluster cuss of just body parts everywhere. So you really have to pay attention, and to be honest, the people that I'm working with are some of the most, I've already said this, but they're some of the most competent, and frankly, they know what they're doing. They're awesome guys. They are experts at what they are focusing on specifically for the project. The project would not be what it is if we didn't have this sort of collaboration. Excellent collaboration with any communities I have with this one.
Well, it definitely seems to be true of a lot of artists and musicians we've spoken to. I mean, it's just such a supportive community.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so as you've worked on Pony Kart, obviously Pony Kart in itself sounds like Mario Kart, so I'm assuming that was a bit of an inspiration for the game. But did you guys look at other racing games as well as you developed it?
Oh yeah, as we've been, I guess doing quote-unquote research trips, where we don't really leave our room, but we've been trying other games. We've been trying to see how their mechanics work, how the game is put together, and how they solve a lot of the issues that we're running into. For instance, how long is a lap supposed to be? We've been looking at a lot of statistics of how long each lap is on Mario Kart and several other different games. We've even run into some very creative solutions with ideas for including boss races, as well as one-shot laps where it's not even a full circle. You go from start to finish. And we thought that's a very creative solution, and that could really open up a lot of possibilities with interesting, frankly, be quite difficult, and it's probably going to be the death of us, but we're going to really try and have plenty of variety in our tracks in regards to the mood that it conveys, the kind of challenges that you have in the track, and the general look and feel. But as the show has a lot of variety, but we want it to be very versatile and very well-rounded racing game, not necessarily a clone of any one game in particular.
Well, you've composed the main Pony Kart theme song, and it's been up on YouTube for a few weeks now, and actually EFR featured it in one of our earlier podcasts. What were your musical inspirations for that theme?
Well, this might not be the answer that you're looking for, but it is actually a remix of the initial track that I did for Sweet Apple Acres. But when they wanted me to make that song, quite frankly, I just threw crap together. I found some really nice drum and bass drum loops that I liked. Sounded really good. Threw that in there. Myself, you know what? I freaking love strings. Throw some strings in there. And you know what? Guitar 5 does some really nice distortion to the guitar. I think I'll throw that in there too.
Well, it reminds me of the story of, and I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who composed Kung Fu Fighting, that old 70s funk song. He had one last track to record in the studio, and he didn't have any ideas, and he ad-libbed it in the studio. That was his, and it became his one-hit wonder, was Kung Fu Fighting. He ad-libbed that in the studio. It almost sounds like that's kind of what you did, but maybe that was the right process to get that perfect sound.
And sometimes it is. Honestly, there's not really a science when it comes to music. A lot of people would argue against that point when they're bringing up music theory or tonal harmony, but to be honest, the music comes first and the science comes afterward, trying to explain why something works. out myself, because trying to do something the same way twice usually doesn't work out.
There's another video game out there that's getting a lot of hype, that's still in production, but also has a strong musical element to it, and I'm sure you've heard of it, Fighting is Magic. And I was wondering if you've listened to those tracks by Rainbow Crash and what you thought of those.
Oh, of course I have. That guy's like a freaking rock star. I love him. I honestly, somebody had once mistaken Rainbow Crash 88 of being on our team, and I couldn't help but think, oh, I freaking wish.
Well, and so with Rainbow Crash's music for Fighting is Magic, it seems that he's developed tracks for each stage to be based off of a character. Your track music for Sweet Apple Acres is obviously inspired by Applejack. Have you thought about, with the other tracks, composing those themes to fit characters, or are you trying to compose them to fit the setting?
Honestly, it depends on the track. Sometimes there's a track that deserves, its own theme to it. For instance, if we're eventually going to be doing an Everfree Forest track, I suppose we could theme that around Zakura, but at the same time, Zakura is very friendly, she's very welcoming. The track, we don't want to be like that at all. Characters versus setting, it just depends on the track that I'm composing for. Again, I'm not the only composer on the team, and honestly, a lot of us will throw ideas back and forth and we'll decide what it is that we want to do with it. We just do something completely out there. Like for the Diamond Dogs Mines racing one, I just surprised I actually liked the idea, so I went with it.
Well, I haven't seen anything about that track. Can you go into a little more detail about the stage and the music for it?
Honestly, we have nothing more than just a few rudimentary sketches of what it would look like. But the soundtrack itself is finished. I mean, specifically for that level. If you've gone to my YouTube channel, I have the looped version of it. So, interesting thing, the direction that we seem to be going with the Diamond Dog Mines, and to be honest, it's really not supposed to be developed until quite a bit later in our pipeline. But occasionally we have ADD moments and we go all over the place. I took the initiative to just compose the song for the Diamond Dog Mines, trying to convey a sense of urgency, a sense of danger, and to make it really feel like you were in an enclosed space where it was very tight, very technical, and very visceral. It's a good track, and we really want to be able to have an enjoyable racing game that is enjoyable for the fans of ponies as well as enjoyable for fans of racing. So the Diamond Dogs Mines, honestly, is very early in development. We don't really know quite the direction that we want to go with, but it feels like the song itself conveys a very good mood for it.
So when you compose racetrack tracks, do you try and set the pace of the song to kind of be that upbeat, speedier sound? When you're composing the track, are you keeping the image, say, of a cart speeding ahead in your mind?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes it just depends on the track, music. Wow, that's confusing.
Well, it's fine. It all works.
So, specifically for Sweet Apple Acres, the initial version of it was only maybe 140 tempo. I later sped it up when I figured out how to, speed up drum loops. When I was composing that one, I didn't want it to be too fast. I wanted it to be a good, sturdy, maybe not necessarily intense, but perhaps even relaxing countryside drive as you're speeding along dirt roads at 150 miles an hour. I wanted to be able to have an upbeat, happy sort of mood to that track. And the visuals reflect that as well. Like whenever you're in a collaborative project, that you can't have conflicting themes in any particular situation. And I think one of the things that we excel at in the team is we're very good at bouncing ideas back and forth on each other and building off of what others have established. And we end up building something that's genuinely quite nice in the long run. Specifically for the Locomotive Rush track, I really wanted to make it feel like a train. And there was a particular instrument in a drum kit that I had that sounded, quite frankly, a lot like a train crossing. Tried to implement into the song as much as I could, sped it up as much as I could, added in an electric guitar, and also kind of a heroic section of the song to try and match the pace of a speeding train. And it seemed to work out pretty good.
Indeed. Well, so now going on to another area of your creativity, as it were, you are actually a visual artist as well in your own right. You've got a DeviantArt setup that's got a lot of followers. So I was wondering, do you focus on one form of creativity at a time? Say, do you have stints where you're only doing the visual stuff, and then stints where you're only doing musical stuff, or parts where you're only, working on the 3D texturing for a video game? Or do you kind of jump from project to project?
Honestly, I jump from project to project. a little bit too much. It's almost unhealthy. Because of that, I kind of spread myself thin, and quite honestly, the last episode that we watched, It's About Time, kind of spoke to me in regards to that. I'm really excellent at planning, but I do allow things to pile up too much that I start to get worried, about, what am I going to do then? What am I going to do, a week from now? It's honestly been working a lot better for me as I've just been taking things as they come. Say that we need something in my cart specifically, like a 3D model or a texture, I'll focus on that for a bit. Or say that I need to compose a song for an upcoming charity album, I'll focus on that for a bit. It depends on the situation. However, if I ever do have a stint, they don't last for very long.
You mentioned just a moment ago that you've, say, composed some tracks for charity albums. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, the first one that I composed, the song One Cold Morning, was specifically for the Smile charity album. Little known fact, I also painted the album art, and not a lot of people liked it. That's okay, that's okay. But the track itself, I composed in maybe 8 hours, but the Smile charity album was a huge success. It grossed about $26,000 in what was donated, all to the Children's Cancer Association.
Well, and we spoke to the Beetle Bronies who were also involved with that, or at least a couple of their members were, and yeah, it definitely, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It really, really is. Our next project that we're focusing on right now, it's called The Seeds of Kindness. We're trying to raise funds for an organization called Your Siblings. They're focusing on building a clinic over in Uganda, as well as, I believe, a schoolhouse for children to be, to be able to be raised and educated in that area. Hoping that it's going to be as big of a success as the last, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be garnering the same attention as the first album. People seem to have run out of steam and energy, and also a lot of people are kind of moved on from, the charity phase because it's no longer Christmas time. I'm not sure really how to explain it.
Well, here's a non-visual wag of the finger to the fandom. Come on, guys.
We're going to do more work promoting it as much as we can. We're working on putting out a teaser, another teaser like we did for the first one. And don't worry, I won't be doing the album art this time, so no more Pinkie Pie.
Well, and so going back to your artwork, I wanted to ask you, you seem to have almost, and I wouldn't say it's a cel-shaded look, you have a very stylized look in your art, and I was wondering what your inspirations were.
That's a recent trend that I've been focusing on. I discovered the magic of the lasso tool, and I actually figured it out while I was painting a quick concept for Pony Cart. To be honest, I really don't know if there is much of an influence, but I do see a lot of similarities in work that other artists have done. Love how expressive and bold I can be with colors, because everything is well retained within this little shape that I've designed. We'll throw in a bunch of texture as well, and play with lighting.
When you're working on your artwork, do you listen to any specific music?
I have a general playlist that I'll cycle through, but if I feel like I really need to convey a certain mood, and I feel that it's important, I'll often change the music to something that matches the mood that I'm trying to convey. The general Two Steps from Hell music's playing in my soundtrack, or in my playlist. I have, the general composers of films or video games. On occasion, though, if I'm really trying to do something that's off the wall, or just super pony related, I will pull up a lot of songs from other brony composers and listen to that. The fandom seems to produce very uplifting, and it can really change the outcome of a painting, or, my mood, for example, whenever I'm painting something.
Well, so who are some of your favorite brony musicians then to listen to?
Well, first and foremost, I have to say, as much as I miss the guy, I love Not a Clever Pony. I have every one of his songs. Actually, the very first brony that I ever interacted with. He and I managed to, do a lot together, and we'll come back to that in a bit. I love Pinkie Pie Swear. Matt Robertson is my waifu. I love Alex S. And to be honest, as I start to go down the list, and I don't mean to exclude anybody, but the people who are involved in mylittlерemix.com, as well as in these Skype chats, community Skype chats, in regards to musicians, to your works in progress and all of your music, I can't, at any rate, be exclusive here.
So could you go into some detail about the work you've done with Not a Clever Pony?
Yeah, definitely. Not a Clever Pony was an amazing guy. I would usually refer to him as Dan. He and I, when we first interacted with each other, I remember seeing his very first song posted on Equestria Daily. I don't think it was the first song that he wrote, but it's the first one that he published, or at least that I saw on Equestria Daily. It was what was it called? Dan is an amazing guy. That's what his name is. When he and I first ran into each other, it was actually on his DeviantArt page. I mentioned that I absolutely loved his song and how jealous I was of him. And he then posted, "Hey, I really appreciate the comment. By the way, your name sounds familiar." And we ended up exchanging contact information. And from there on, it was just, we started building ideas on each other. He conceptualized the idea for the Remix War. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
I've heard something of it.
The Remix War was the very first major music collaborative project that we ever did. And this was long before My Little Remix was ever created. Just basically the concept that you take any song that another Brony composer has made, or Brony musician, and you remix it. Either in your own style, or you add something to it, or you just completely go in a different direction with it. We were bouncing these ideas off of each other. A lot of other ideas started to come up. He and I thought it would be great to have a musical forum to where all of the Brony musicians could come together and talk about technique, be able to build off of each other's knowledge and skills, and to just genuinely improve as a community. Ideas that we had, not all of them saw light, unfortunately. And as you all recall, he has recently left the community. I believe it's because of medical reasons. If I understand correctly, he needed to sell some of his music equipment to be able to pay for some surgery.
Well, yeah, he definitely produced a lot of really good work, and I think that forum idea is something that really could be applied to a lot of areas of the fandom. I know that there are tons of artists and musicians and just all different creative types in the community who are constantly trying to collaborate, and it seems like if you had some sort of a central place for people to do that, yeah, you could produce a lot of brilliant material.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of other ideas that we're hoping to be able to implement with My Little Remix. Unfortunately, real life has kind of gotten in the way.
It tends to do that at times.
Yeah, definitely. One of the first things that I would like to change, to be honest, is the color scheme. It's my very first web design, and quite frankly, it's, well, as you can see, a little amateur.
Are there any artists that you would like to work with, or, either visual or auditory?
Man, I've been hoping to be able to do a collaboration with Alex S., but he's a busy guy. A lot of other artists and musicians out there that I would love to collaborate with. Miyu Chan, for example, is an incredible vocal artist, and I'd love to do something with her. In regards to art related, I don't know, whenever it comes to art, collaborations don't always work out so well. I've done them before ponies, and complicated. I mean, quite a bit more, because you have, whereas music can get away with differences in styles and interpretation, when it comes to a visual piece of art, it has to be cohesive. And if you can't attain that, it just doesn't work.
When you're working on your artwork, what program do you use? And do you ever try to do any actual physical painting with oil paints or with acrylics or anything?
I don't miss physical paints. Back in high school and in early years of college, it's so messy. But to be honest, you really can't capture that look any other way. Physical paint, but I can't afford it, unfortunately. It's expensive, it's messy, I don't have the setup that I can do it at home. The kind of software that I use is specifically Photoshop, a Photoshop CS5. One of the great strengths about Photoshop is I'm able to customize it in crazy ways. I can make my own custom brushes to really cut down on just painting in details. I can create a detail brush that will give some. I have an entire pack of rock brushes that I've released on my DeviantArt account. Anybody can go ahead and grab those and take a whirl with them. I'm going for more of an acrylic or oil sort of look. It has a really nice brush blending effect that Photoshop can't even try to emulate. It's a pain in the butt to use anything in Photoshop because it's such a RAM hog.
Well, and we know that our staff artist, Skipsy, and our staff graphic artist, Sterling, they've both commented about how Photoshop can just completely consume a processor.
Yeah, it does on occasion. I have a beast of a machine, but it still seems to slow down on occasion whenever I'm using Photoshop. But it doesn't do that with any other thing. I'm not sure what it is. Then again, I'm sure if I installed FL Studio, I would experience, CPU maxing again.
Well, do you have any favorite artists that you like to reference, or any favorite Brony visual media creators that you frequent on DeviantArt?
That's a really big question. Okay.
And I have to say, I'm guilty of asking a lot of big questions.
No, that's totally fine. When it comes to my artistic influence, Sometimes I'll be lucky enough to be able to catch a name when I find something amazing. It's a folder on my hard drive, all dedicated to awesome artwork. It's getting into maybe about 10 gigabytes right now. It cycles through my desktop backgrounds. Absolutely love concept artists for video games. I don't even know half of these guys' names. I can't remember them. It's usually, something that I can't pronounce. I just absolutely am astounded by what they're able to pull off. If I'm ever lucky, I can find their personal blog and see how they paint things and look at their process and try and emulate that to some degree. As far as brony artists go, I really enjoy a lot of the comic artists. Pixel Kitties does some really good comics, as well as Mad Max. I enjoy their stuff a lot because they have a good sense of humor.
Well, and Pixel Kitties has been on the show before, and she's just amazing. She's such a positive person, and you can get that vibe from her work.
Definitely. As well as the few opportunities that I've had to interact with her, she is a very positive person. She's also very humble as well.
Well, she's definitely a humble artist, and she seems to be so surprised by all of the attention she's been getting. Have you been kind of surprised by all the attention you've gotten as an artist?
Quite frankly, yeah. I get a lot of comments specifically on YouTube, and I love the fact that people appreciate what I do, but it's not really something that I need for validation. But I do get a lot of comments. Quite frankly, I highly doubt that I get nearly as much attention as half of the other brony artists around there on the internet, but I really do appreciate all of it. I read every single comment, including the criticism, and I appreciate all of it. On many occasions, I've run into comments that have given me wonderful ideas.
Well, can you think of an example of that?
Yeah, a good example. For instance, the track that I did, which was a remix of Jeff the Strider's Celestial Origins, somebody recommended, or at least suggested, that it would be great to have an extended battle theme of that. One problem that I have whenever I compose music is I will literally change my mind halfway through composing and do something completely different. It's like 2 songs in one. And somebody suggested that I take the later half of that track and do an extended version of it. And I did, and it ended up really good. I learned a lot from that.
Well, so overall, are there any new areas of music or new areas of art that you're looking to explore in the future? I mean, are there new projects that you would like to start working on?
I really want to focus on learning the Unreal Development Kit this coming summer. I highly doubt any project that I'm going to be doing in that program is going to be pony related, specifically because I want to focus on building a portfolio. I really want to be able to hone my skills and be able to make myself marketable. I would love to do this sort of stuff for a living. I highly doubt that I'm going to have any success poser in regards to the professional world, mainly because I am not musically literate. I'm terrible at reading music, and all the theory that I do know is completely by ear. But when it comes to art, that's something that I do feel like I know what I'm doing. And I really want to focus on building a portfolio, a visual art portfolio of showcasing, 3D modeling, concept art, textures, and I'd love to be able to build some complete environments and showcase that in a portfolio.
So would you say that you are an artist first and a musician second?
I would actually have to say so, yes. I'm sure, and I've already had several people disagree with me, that they like my music a lot more than my art. I feel like I would have much better chances of being successful, at least professionally, as an artist than a musician. If I keep music as a hobby, that means that I can just keep doing whatever I want in regards to music. That I won't have some sort of director breathing down my neck telling me exactly what it is that I need to write. And it's going to stay free.
Would you say then that your music is more of a personal type of creation for you than your art, if you're willing to subject your art to that kind of direction?
Music is more of a, personal thing. Art is, while it's still a very personal thing for me, it's something that I feel like I can put out there. It's something that I feel like I can be willing to accept payment for, for lack of a, better phrase.
Well, are you planning on working on more video games in the future then, aside from Pony Card, or are you already starting to do that?
Currently, I don't have any projects that I have in the works right now, but I'm currently going to college for game design, and I've had many ideas for some really good basic games that I would love to produce, at least in my college years. A lot of concepts that I've developed over the years in regards to gameplay mechanics, story. You'll see a lot of that come to light if you look through my DeviantArt page. You'll see a lot of artwork that doesn't really seem to be connected to anything or reference from anything. Those are usually my own ideas of video games that I've had.
When you're working on your music or when you're working on your art, do you ever find that the two influence each other? You know, your music, say, influencing your art or your art influencing your music?
Most definitely. Whenever I paint an environment of some kind, it usually paints a soundtrack in my head as well. Even though I might be listening to music at the time, sometimes the music that I'm listening to will influence the art. Other times the art that I'm painting will influence what I want to do next. The music that I'm writing will also influence what it is that I want to paint next.
Is that kind of how you choose the images you use for your YouTube videos then? You maybe images that you feel reflect the music?
Usually whenever I post a song on YouTube, most of the time the artwork is made specifically for the song. But if I don't feel like painting something at the time, because, again, I have very fluctuating stints in regards to what I feel like doing at the time, I'll just pull other artwork or find some nice photographs online.
So coming in the near future, do you have any upcoming projects you'd like to highlight?
Right now, we're working on a charity album for your siblings called Seeds of Kindness, and there's a lot of work that we have left to do with Pony Cart. In regards to any future unrelated projects, definitely going to be focusing on building my portfolio, at least in a professional sense. Maybe not so much pony related, to be honest, it's not a good portfolio. Mostly in regards to, like a professional visual artist sense. Employers don't like to see fan art in a portfolio. Now, when it comes to audio engineering or, broadcasting, different things like that, that's always a good thing. I'm going to include Pony Cart in my resume. Like, heck, why not? I'm sure they're going to run into it. And, if they're haters and they don't want to hire me, well, I don't want to freaking work there.
Well, for all you know, the hiring manager will be a brony him or herself.
Might find a pie, just sitting on their desk.
It's always a good sign.
Introduction. So, who's your favorite pony?
Well, Makkon, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today. Makkon is a noted brony artist, musician, and one of the members of the Pony Cart video game team. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
As always, here are a couple of announcements. Remember to check out Maddie Peters and Michelle Krieber's charity drives. Maddie is raising money to assuage drought damage in Africa, and Michelle is supporting Plan's Because I Am a Girl campaign. Both are worthy causes, and both are easy to donate to. Just check the links on the right of EFR's main website page, www.everfreeradio.com. EFR is going to be rolling out some new segments, programming, and even merchandise in the next couple of weeks. And stay tuned for when we announce our next big live stream event. It's going to be awesome! And now for some well-deserved thank yous. Everfree Radio's reviewers this week were Autumn, Moonlight, and Bones. Our site editor and code scripter is Nash. Sockware is our social media coordinator. MandoPony is our staff musician, Sterling is our graphic artist, and Skipsy is nearly done with his comic. Our contributors are Oatmeal, Sketchy, Heatwave, and Screwball. EFR's technical director is 8-Track, and 1Trick is our production director. Final Draft is our broadcast director. Hey wait, that's me. I'm also your host for the program. Thanks for listening, good night, and good luck.
Put a bird on it. Put a bird on it.